Welcome to Solo4LIFE Reads. The question for this video is, players that have over a decade of experience in the FromSoftware games, what is your outlook on the titles these days? These responses are from Facebook.
As a longtime lover of Souls-like co-op, I was thrilled for the release of Nightreign. It had the potential to be one of the best co-op games of its genre to ever exist. It was a piss-poor excuse and a cash grab, and the community defended it tooth and nail. I say with 200 plus hours in game. The whole FromSoft had never made a similar game, so they weren't sure how successful it would be is a crock of bullshit, and everyone knows it. FromSoft is very aware that a very solid percentage of the player base plays specifically to kill bosses with people. It was a guaranteed success. The DLC barely offered anything. For a game with so many varying biomes, the maps were basic as heck. They used the most basic enemies from Elden Ring to fill in most spaces. DS1,2,3, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring will forever bring me back every handful of years 6 ho. Played every Souls game from Demon's Souls to Elden Ring. Gameplay-wise, they peaked with Sekiro, making it a much more skill-focused game, and if they could marry the gearing/freedom of a Souls entry with the speed and skill expression of Sekiro, it would be a hit. Bloodborne is aesthetically and thematically the best thing they've ever done, and it's a shame they've never brought back the switch weapon mechanic. Despite playing through it a few times, Elden Ring is probably my least favorite thing FS have ever made. It feels like they saw the post-DS3 community go mainstream with the "this is the hardest game ever" meme and rolled with it, inflating boss HP, giving them long dumb combos with short punish windows, and just throwing in "but what if there were two duo/trio gank fights" that didn't have the push and pull of ONS or neat gimmick of the Abyss Watchers. The game feels like an open-world rolling simulator, and there's a reason Bleed Cheese build/max poise strength became the most popular things. It did a lot good, but it feels like they designed bosses to artificially look hard for new players without actually being hard, just tedious, and I don't think I really liked a single boss fight in the base game and DLC. Modded the game to have Sekiro-like deflect mechanics, and it feels like it was designed for that with the combo chains, but it was just never implemented. I feel like a lot of us cling to the good one that we played first. Cousin of mine still says that Demon's Souls on the PS3 is better than the remake. I got another friend who says DS2 is more fun to replay than DS3 because he knows the game better. One thing I can confidently say is that Elden Ring shut up the whole community with this concept of nostalgia goggles. Because it took all the best elements from basically every game and perfectly blended them to appease literally everyone. Massive, but focused. It's a hard balancing act to pull off. I think that's why the game Nightreign really pissed off old Soul vets. I personally have beaten Nightreign, and have over 100 hours in it. But I didn't really enjoy my experience with it because of how bare bones it is compared to Elden Ring. That sounds unfair, but the level of care FromSoft has put into combining elements to appease the fan base has been around since literally DS2. With every new addition in the series, they are trying to appease multiple types of FromSoft fans. A game like Nightreign feels like the first time they are only trying to make one group happy. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, and more focused concept can lead to amazing things. But with how spoiled FromSoft fans have been with how well they appease everyone in the fandom, I think it's thrown a lot of people for a loop that they are finally trying to focus up on the new titles. Feels like Miyazaki chasing a difficulty high with Elden Ring while not meaningfully improving the combat for the player. Make an action game to keep the pace. I beat Consort Raiden. I think he's just an unfun boss for the limitations of From's combat framework. I'd rather play harder action games like DMC and Ninja Gaiden to meet bosses doing all that. Elden Ring's open world for the sense of discovery for the first playthrough or two is novel and great. It completely loses me on repeat playthroughs when I'm making a build where the open world is almost like a shopping list I decide to focus on or just ignore because of the rewards. Also fix the damn camera. OP, the game being difficult is on the player. The game is made easier through the experience of other smarter players, which is the primary foundation on why these games were made. Commenter, I get that. I also think the difficulty is the least interesting part of the games and think Elden Ring is an example of them chasing a high of escalating difficulty against a combat system that mostly relies on iframes. There's a very abrupt difference after killing Morgott in damage scaling. Raiden was a visual mess on launch where his first phase is too piss easy and his second phase is just noise and unfun. I personally thought the weapons in ER sucked as I was so excited to power stance Chaos Blades like in DS2 and was extremely disappointed when they wasn't in the game that literally has a God of Chaos in it. Also PvP is a joke and they need to bring back Purple Phantoms. Other commenter, hold up. Chaos Blades as in Kratos Chaos Blades? Because they have the Magma Blade which is pretty close and damn up for a Pyromancer. Original commenter, no, it's a katana that's in a bunch of their games like the Moonlight Greatsword is. It does a bunch of damage but also damages you with every swing. But in DS2 you could power stance them and both the effects would stack. It was so much fun. Other commenter, right. I hardly used it after DS1 so I forget it exists. Damn, it really isn't in the game now that I think about it. Original commenter, yeah, the first thing I noticed was that and that the lances suck too. Personally the only thing ER has going for it is a jump button, the rest of the game has a lot of cool stuff but it's all half-baked. Like, you do Patch's entire quest and then he just shows up back in his cave after you thought he died with no new stuff in his shop. Back in the day you'd have unlimited +10/+25 stones or humanity or something from not killing him and finishing his quest. Nightreign was far more refreshing and enjoyable than Elden Ring. Elden Ring just didn't really add enough spice imo. Also Vanilla DS2 was better than Gank Remastered. OP, what would you have added to Elden Ring from Nightreign? Commenter, movement 100%. The verticality would be so much more enjoyable with Sekiro or Nightreign movement. Elden Ring combat is either trivial with good armor and poise or absolutely dog poop. I know people do hitless but if I have to wait for one attack out of 10 to be able to attack I ain't having fun. A lot of Elden Ring base bosses felt amazing to fight on Nightreign. I miss the overall Souls formula. I feel like Elden Ring, while being a 10/10, has less replayability for me than other titles. I prefer a linear Souls game with more density. The open world aspect of Elden Ring makes repeated playthroughs kind of tedious. I wish From would go back to that style of level design for future games. I also think Nightreign is pretty boring. I played through all of the available bosses on release, but never felt like going back to min-max a build. I don't like the level design in Nightreign and for a roguelike there's very little variance from run to run. I don't want to call it a cash grab, but it certainly feels like one. Other commenter, I disagree on Nightreign being boring but the ER part is spot on for me personally. Since it's open world you tend to just run around the map, skip 90% of things trying to get your build running. I'm also someone who does side content outside of things that my build needs because it's fun to just run around but it's not the same flow compared to previous games. Original commenter, I feel like Elden Ring has a lot of running around and space/time between doing what I enjoy most in the game. While I value exploration the first time around in a game, and Elden Ring was amazing in that regard, I don't enjoy the time it takes to get from point A to point B in order to get to the core of the gameplay. While that experience may be part of the whole package, and obviously intentional design, I feel like after the first time around it's a slog. I appreciate the effort that has gone into it, and it was a $70 experience for sure, but once I experienced it, the subsequent playthroughs have left me wanting a more condensed experience. I often go back to DS2/3/Bloodborne instead these days when I want a From fix. Started with DS2, then DS3, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, DS1, Sekiro, then Elden Ring. Honestly have played almost zero Nightreign. Sekiro, DS3 and even DS2 changed my brain on how video games should be. I was a hardcore Skyrim nerd until DS2, and basically haven't been able to go back. Then DS3 and Bloodborne going to increase speed and aggression, and pushing it a step up with how cinematic these games are. Ugh, so peak. Elden Ring kinda just felt like DS3 the sequel to me, but I do still love it. I think the DLC really felt like an even bigger step forward, with Bell feeling like the most cinematic fight from the franchise, and the lore implications felt peak as well. They're my main game franchise I always come back to. Oh, and Sekiro's final boss is the only boss I actually shouted at my TV for when I finally beat him at 2 AM from straight hype and pride.